Good afternoon, guys. As you can see, you have Mr. Hartley today for 8th period. I am in some meetings with Mrs. Bueller and the rest of the math teachers. So I have done a video for you to take you through our notes for today. You should have already turned in your worksheet that you did in Mr. Overmeyer's room yesterday. Mr. Hartley should have collected that. I will grade that and put that in. Obviously, since I am not here today, we will not do a binder check. We will do that on Monday. So I need you to go through this video, fill in your notes, and this will be your binder check on Monday. Please remember you can stop this video, pause it, replay it as much as you need so that you can fill everything in. Okay, so we'll start with our warm-up today. First of all, it says, which equation represents the second step of the solution process? So you can see that they have already done step 1. They've written down the original problem. Step 2, you need to fill in. I would hope when you see those parentheses that you would say you need to distribute. So go ahead and distribute. Whoops. And then you should be able to choose the proper answer from the multiple choice questions. Okay, over to the right now. It says Tanya makes $5 an hour and 15% commission of the total dollar value on cosmetics she sells. Suppose Tanya's commission is increased by 17%. How much money will she make if she sells $300 worth of product and works 30 hours? Okay, well, first and foremost, even if Tanya sells nothing, she makes $5 an hour. And that is not changing at all. Okay, so she's going to work for $5 an hour. And it says down here she's going to do that for 30 hours. So that's the first part. Then we got to talk about her commission. Now, for her commission, it started out at 15%. Now they're going to change it to 17%. So commission always adds to how much you're getting paid. Now you should know you can't use the 17% as is. We have to change that to 0.17. And commission is always based on how much you sell. So it says down there at the bottom, she's going to sell $300 worth of product. So this part is the hourly rate. This part is her commission. If you add them together, you'll get her final paycheck, which should be that. And again, I hope you're doing this on your calculator to check yourself. Okay, good. That's our warm-up for today. So let's talk about our notes. Now, these two words should be very familiar to you. We talked a couple days ago that ratio is a comparison of two numbers. Okay, and normally when we have a ratio, we're going to write it as a fraction. You all know that a fraction has two numbers, the numerator and the denominator. So we're going to write that as a fraction. Now we need to talk about percent. If I tell you you ate 75% of a pizza, that means you ate 75% of the whole thing. Percents are always part of a whole. Maybe you got a 65% on a test. That means you got 65% part of it right out of the entire whole thing. And this also is normally written as a fraction, because fractions are always part to whole. The numerator is the part you're looking at, and the denominator is the whole number you're comparing it to. So our first set of questions here. Represent each situation as a percent. Round to the nearest tenth if necessary. So I have 16 boys in a class of 28. The first thing I need you to do is write that as a fraction, part over whole. 16 is the part of the class that are boys over the whole class, which is 28 kids. Now, you know fractions mean to divide. So if you divide that, you should get a number on your calculator that is approximately that. That is not a percent. You have to move the decimal place 2 spots. If you move that decimal place 2 spots, I get a final answer rounded to the nearest tenth, which is 1 decimal place of 57.1%. 5 slices of an 8-slice pizza. So I have a part, which is 5 slices out of the total, which is 8 slices. If you divide that, it will give you a decimal. To turn that decimal into a fraction, you're moving the decimal place 2 spots. Folks, this is the same as multiplying by 100 because all percents are out of 100. So if you don't like moving the decimal place, in your calculator, just multiply that number by 100. And you will get a final percentage of that. Next, I have freshmen out of the entire student body. If you divide that, you will get approximately that. Turning it into a percentage means multiplying by 100 or moving the decimal place 2 spots, and you get a percentage of that. So hopefully you're good at manipulating your calculator, dividing, and turning those decimals into percentages. Okay, so we're going to talk about a new percentage called a percent of change. Okay, if you're trying to calculate the change in something, for example, if the temperature changes from 70 degrees to 75 degrees, the change is 5 degrees. Well, what did you do? You subtract those two numbers. Maybe my class starts as 20 kids and then it goes down to 17 kids. Well, how much did it change? It changed by 3 kids. I subtract those two numbers. So on the percent of change, you have a formula that you're going to use. You're going to do the change over the original. And I need you to make note, when you do this change, you are doing a subtraction, which is going to be the big number minus the small number. Okay, we want to have a positive number up there when we subtract. So we're going to take the large number minus the small number. So first thing your directions say to do, determine if this percent decreased or increased. Let's do that first. If I take a look at number 1, if I go from 66 to 30, you better be able to tell me that this thing definitely decreased. Okay. Number 2, if I go from 9.8 to 12.1, you should be able to tell me that that's an increase. And number 3, if I go from 24 to 40, you should be able to tell me that that is a decrease. Okay. All right, so now let's actually use that formula and figure out by what percentage it changed. So your formula says you're going to do the change over the original. So first thing I need to figure out up here is by how much did this change. So I'm going to subtract to figure out by how much it changed. And in this case, that change will be 36. And then I'm going to put it over the original number. Now that is division. So you will divide that. It will give you a decimal. That is approximately that is not a percentage. You need to multiply by 100 or move the decimal place 2 spots, and you will get this as your percent of decrease. So that means it went down 54.5%. Number 2, same idea. I got to find my change first. Well, I need to subtract them. And again, we're going to put the larger number minus the smaller number and figure out by how much those two numbers changed. And in this case, it has changed by 2.3. We will put that over the original number, which looks like that. Now you're ready to divide, and it will give you a decimal of approximately that. Now again, I hope you're typing this in your calculator instead of just writing down what I'm doing here. Actually physically do it on your calculator. We got to turn that into a percentage now. So move the decimal 2 spots or multiply by 100, and you will see that this thing increased by 23.5%. And number 3, first thing I got to do is find the change for the numerator of my fraction by subtracting them. This will give me a change of 16 over the original number, which was 24. When you divide that, you will get that, multiply it by 100 or move the decimal place 2 spots, you will get that this thing decreased by 66.7%. All right, so I'm going to give you a couple minutes, and I want you to try these two on the back on your own. The first thing you need to tell me is if it increases or decreases. Then you need to use that formula we just did to find the percentage. So go ahead. Okay, so hopefully you paused and took the time to try this on your own and filled in the formulas and got those percentages. Okay, the last three questions here are word problems, and we are going to be using the exact same formula. You have to find your change, which means I need to do some subtraction, and then you have to put it over the original. So take a look at number 6. The price a used bookstore pays to buy a book is $5. So folks, that would be your original price. Okay, that's the original price paid by the bookstore. Then they sell the book for 28% above that price. Well, you know that you can't use this as is. You have to move the decimal place. And since they say above, that means we should be increasing. What is the selling price of the book? So remember, when we do that change, we have to do a subtraction, which means we need to do the big number minus the small number. Well, I have this $5 number right here. The bookstore said they're going to increase the price above what they paid before, which means that's the bigger number, which means it needs to come first. Then we subtract the smaller number, which is at $5, and we put it over the original price. Well, the original price was $5, and that will give us the percentage. Well, they gave us the percentage, so we can set it equal to that percent. And now we're going to use what you know about solving equations to find what x is. So first things first, I got to get rid of this 5 in the denominator, which gives me a new equation that looks like this. Next, I got to get rid of that 5. So what does this mean? It means the bookstore is going to sell this book for $6.40. It bought it for $5. It increased the price by 28%, which means it now will be selling the book for $6.40. All right, number 7. The total number of passengers on a cruise ship increased by 10%. Right there, folks. That's the percentage I need to use, but it's got to be changed to that. From 2007 to 2009. If there were 17.22 million passengers in 2009, they're saying that is in 2009. Now, if you look at my time frame right here, 2009 is not my starting number. Okay? 2009 is my ending number. They're asking for how many people were in 2007. That's my starting number, which I don't know. Now, it did say that it increased the price. It increased the price, which means that increased the number of people, excuse me. That means that 17.22, that number is your bigger number. So when I do my subtraction, that needs to come first. What's the original number? Well, 2007 is a starting year, so the original number would go with 2007. Well, I don't know that. That's what we're using x for. And we increased by 10%. So now I'm ready to solve. I've got to get this x out of the denominator. Now I've got to get my x's together. Remember, this is a 1x here. So now I have that. And now when I divide by 1.1, I get approximately, and remember what we're talking about here. We're talking about passengers on a cruise ship, and we're talking millions. So let's just go ahead and say that for my answer. Now remember, we're talking about people, so you might be saying, oh, how do I get 0.65 of a person? Well, this is in millions, so that is okay to leave as a decimal. All right, last one here. The distance from Phoenix to Tucson is 120 miles. That distance from Phoenix to Flagstaff is this much longer. So I know I got to move my decimal place if I want to use that. To the nearest mile, what is the distance from Phoenix to Flagstaff? Well, this Phoenix to Tucson number, this is my original number. So we know that that has to go on the bottom. We also know by percentage, which is what we're going to be equal to. Now the question is, what is the distance from Phoenix to Flagstaff? That's my x. That tells me it is longer, which means it is bigger, which means it has to come first. And now we're ready to solve. You should be able to do this solving, no problem, to isolate the variable here, folks. They told me in the question to round to the nearest mile, so my final answer will be that. Okay, that is your homework, or that is your notes for today. I will be doing this as your binder check on Monday. Mr. Hartley has your Mountain Math number 4, which will be your homework for over the weekend. As you finish this video, please go up and get your Mountain Math 4 from Mr. Hartley. You are to work on this alone, just like you did yesterday in Mr. Overmeyer's class. A repeat, alone. This is not partner work. It will not be loud. You will do this on your own. Thank you. I hope you guys have a good weekend, and I will see you on Monday.